It's time to cook with Susan Beck. I'm bringing you back out into my garden again today to talk about kale. Today I'm going to show you how to harvest kale, how to clean and wash kale, how to preserve it in the freezer, as well as a recipe for using it in smoothies and making kale chips. My next video will be on how to make zuppa toscana, a potato, kale, and sausage soup that I just love. But we'll save that one for another video. Alright, so here are my kale leaves, and all I need to do is take a scissors and snip them off. I like to take a scissors, that way I'm just getting the biggest leaves, and I'll let the smaller ones continue to grow until later. Now this kale is a very short row, but it's really enough for our family. We eat it just, in small amounts with the chips and the smoothies and the soup. Not so much as just a side dish vegetable. I plant this as soon as the ground is workable. It likes the cool weather, so these seeds can go in, usually around Easter really. You can start planting your lettuces and your Swiss chards, your spinach, and your kale. Along with your peas. I've got some nice looking peas over here as well. So let's just snip a few more of these leaves and we'll take them in the house to be washed. Now it's time to wash our kale. This is an important step because when it rains and things, even though these leaves aren't really touching the ground, dirt does splatter up and get on them. So I am going to be removing this great big purple stem and putting them into a sink of water to wash. Then I will rinse them in a second sink of water before spinning them dry. So let's have a look at this. All right, so to remove that big stem, I simply take my leaf, I fold it in half, and I just pull off the part that I want to save from that big green thick stem. That's just a little tough to eat, so getting rid of that, whether you're using Swiss chard, spinach, or kale, is a good idea. Now my stem happens to be purple in color, a little purple tint to it, but whatever kind of kale you have, that might vary a bit. I really like the big bluish green crinkly leaf kale. That's probably my favorite, but they sell it in many different varieties. So there goes that big purple stem, and into my sink is where I'm placing these leaves. Right, here are my leaves in the sink, and I'll just kind of toss them around a little bit and give them a chance for the dirt to fall to the bottom. And then as I move them to my other sink, I like to just rinse anything that might still be on them under the water and move them to another sink full of clean water. Let them rinse and sink in there a little bit so that I'm sure I've removed all the soil that might be on them from the garden. Now once I think my kale has been rinsed and well cleaned, I am ready to get some of that excess water off. So I have a couple options. I can just take a colander and put it into that and let it sit and drip until the water has quit running through. And once that's done, I would put it onto some clean dish towels to let it finish drying by air. A little faster method is a salad spinner. I have a friend who told me that I should try one of these out. In fact, she even loaned me hers one summer towards the end of this growing season so that I could test it out. So you simply put your kale, Swiss chard, lettuce, spinach, whatever leafy greens you'd like to clean, into the colander portion of the salad spinner. And again, you need to let it drip out a bit. Then make sure there's no water in your salad spinner. I've used mine once already, so I want to drain that. Put the lid on, and then there's like this pump on the top, and I just press that down 3 times, and it will spin and spin and spin, and the centrifugal force will take the water and pull it away from the leaves, and my excess water will be down in the bottom of the salad spinner. Like I said, this is useful for more than just kale. And after I borrowed my friend's salad spinner that August and September, I decided in the spring that I definitely needed to own one myself if I was going to continue to have a big garden. So my leaves are just a little bit damp, but they're not dripping with water anymore. And I do have water in there to get rid of. I think a second spin is always helpful to really remove it if I want it to be really dry. If I'm going to steam this or something, it's no big deal, but if I want to store it, it really should be stored dry so it preserves better. I really like these, sometimes I call them green bags. These ones happen to be yellow, but I'll post a link for both the salad spinner and these down below if you're interested in finding out more about these. But I store all my vegetables in these and find that they last much, much longer. So, moving on now, let's learn how to make a smoothie. Well, now it's time to cook our kale. I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can use the kale that we have picked in our garden or that you pick up at your supermarket or your farmer's market. So my kale, as we've seen, is already washed and cleaned and ready to go. So I'm going to begin with a very simple thing you could do with kale, and that is to make a smoothie. This is my kids' favorite way to use the kale, and I love having them use this because kale is full of vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin C. It's a good source of fiber. It has a lot of minerals like potassium and phosphorus and calcium. These dark green leaves, anything that's dark green, is just very, very good for you. So I'm just going to make some single serving smoothies today in these containers, and I've already cut a banana in half and stuck it into this part of my blender. I am going to add to that just a handful of strawberries. In our house, smoothies are never measured. They're just kind of what we have around. We use mangoes, we use blueberries, raspberries when we start picking those, anything we have. So in goes my strawberries, and then we like 1 container of yogurt. The light is perfectly fine if you want to cut a few calories, because this is where you're getting most of your calories is through your yogurt, and with all that fresh fruit in there and the sweetness of the bananas and strawberries, you won't miss any of those extra sugar put in that very healthy kale. So I just take it and cut it up just a little bit and put it into the top of my smoothie container. So I have all of my ingredients that I'm going to use in there, as you can kind of see as I rotate it around. The last thing I like to do is put in a little bit of milk because it needs some liquid for the mixer, for the blender, to work very well. And on goes my cap. Alright, that looks quite well mixed together. You can see those little flecks of kale in there, little spots of green. The thing you need to know is you don't even taste it when you drink. I like a smoothie that's a little bit thick but can still be slurped through a straw. It's perfect. I can taste my bananas and my strawberries, but I don't even taste the kale. Yet I'm getting a lot of great nutrition from this smoothie. And I think your kids and you will enjoy this very much. Let's move on to a second thing we can do with kale, and that is to make some kale potato chips. While the smoothies were going, my oven was preheating to 350 degrees. I am simply going to take this kale and tear it into bite-sized pieces. I want small little pieces, something like this, and I am going to fill my tray with kale like that. I do not really want to get it too thick and layered though. I'd kind of like to keep it in somewhat of a single layer of green leaves. Alright, here's my single layer of kale pieces. Onto this needs to go some olive oil that we will be tossing with all of them to coat, followed by some kind of seasoning. You could just use salt, you could use garlic powder, you could really use just about anything you like. A little Cajun powder would work. Today I'm going to use seasoned salt, so I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top, and then with my hands I will toss this so that all sides are coated with the olive oil. I'm going to spread it back out into that single layer. Things just cook better if we do that. This is going to go into the oven now and cook for roughly 10 minutes. I'm going to keep a little bit of an eye on it so that I don't burn it. I will also halfway through toss it so that what's on the bottom is on the top and vice versa for more even cooking. About 5 minutes have gone by, and you can see these are kind of starting to wilt, but they are definitely not crisp like chips yet. So we're just going to toss them around. Spread them back out a little bit. And continue cooking. Look at that tray of kale chips. These are nice and crispy now. 10 minutes in the oven. If they're not quite crispy in your oven, just go for a little bit longer, maybe even toss them another time. I've let these sit for 3 minutes so that they're ready to eat, and I should hear a crunch. And I can taste a little bit of that seasoned salt, makes them a little bit like potato chips, but boy, are they much more nutritious. I have one other favorite recipe, and that's a zuppa toscana soup, made somewhat like the Olive Garden soup, and I will show you that in another video. Today I'm going to wrap up with what to do with this kale that's left. I could put this into my refrigerator in some storage bags and keep it for more smoothies, or I could prepare it for next winter's smoothies. That's what I'm going to do. I have a pot of boiling water here, and into this pot of water I am going to put my kale that is left. Now it might look like this is not going to fit, but I guarantee it will. This stuff just wilts down to next to nothing. So in go all the last leaves, and I am going to bring that back to a boil and leave it in for about 3 minutes. It's not recommended that you freeze raw vegetables. That's why we are doing this blanching, where we just give it a quick cook, not completely through. Because we do not want to cook it completely through and want it to seem a little bit more fresh, like when we make more smoothies this winter, we are going to put it into ice water. Putting it into the ice water also preserves that beautiful dark green color. Kale has sat in the ice water for like 5 minutes to completely chill it. We are going to drain it well. We want to get rid of as much of the moisture as possible. So I'm going to start by putting it into a colander, trying to avoid those ice cubes there. Oops, there's another one that got caught in my tongs. Put those back in to there. Our next step will be to give this a really big squeeze to get rid of as much of this water as we can. And I find just using my hands is really about the only method that really gets all the water out. If you don't do this, you're going to end up with watery smoothies, or if you decide you'd like to saute this and eat it later, it's just real runny and like I like to put a little butter on it, and the flavor doesn't come through because there's just too much water in it. So the more you can squeeze out, you do this too when you like buy a box of spinach at the store that's been frozen. You always want to wring out the water, and it really is, it's almost like wringing out a washcloth. Moving on to my next station in preparing this for the freezer. I noticed I have a big stem in here, not that that will hurt me, but we tried to remove those and we cleaned it, and so I'm just going to pull that out. I like to just go ahead and give this a rough chop in a couple different directions so that it's a little more ready and easy to pull out and to put into a couple smoothies. Now for my family, this is enough kale for probably 2 smoothies, so we'll break this into 2 groups and freeze this. You can simply freeze your Swiss chard by putting it into a Ziploc bag, trying to squeeze out as much of the air as possible. Stick it in the freezer, and you're ready to use it anytime throughout the next year. Or if you have a sealer like this, I've already sealed the end of this on the one side. I'm just going to put the other half of my Swiss chard into this bag, put my plastic down, and vacuum seal my Swiss chard. One of the reasons for using a vacuum sealer is I really do get out all the air. As much as I tried with my Ziploc bag, there is still air in there, which means I'll probably get some ice crystals on this, but still perfectly fine for you to use. And there we go, my completely airtight kale. Into the freezer these go. We save these for the winter while we eat our fresh kale this summer. hopefully you've learned a few things about ways to use kale, and once I have my zuppa toscana recipe put together as a YouTube video, I will put a link below this so that you can easily find it.